Kia ora, it's Chris with Earth Sciences New Zealand. This latest installment. Been a bit slack here with the podcasts. I'm calling them a podcast. You can call them whatever you want, just as long as you watch and like and maybe learn a couple things. It is Thursday, Friday Eve. That's Friday Eve, Thursday, the 28th of August. And this episode, if we can call it that, we will, is focused on wind. Wind is going to be the big story over the country for the next several days. There'll be some days when the wind may be not so much of an issue and days when it's really an issue. But broadly speaking, hold on to your hat. So here we are, Friday morning. It'll be a windy type start to the day for much of the South Island. So you're looking at predicted wind gust where you see the gold, the yellow, that's 50K, plenty of that. Even some orange and yellow, or orange and red, I beg your pardon. The orange and the red, that gets higher into the color bar. So always mind your color bar here on the left-hand side. The red is 100K wind gust, and we're dealing, he said, with west to southwest winds. And as we play this through, boy, look at that southerly change. That's just, I'm going to disappear for a second. And you can see here that southerly change quite nicely over the areas east of Christchurch, how the wind shift pushes north with time. So a few things going on here. Well, for starters, Friday's going to be a breezy to windy day, a very unsettled, kind of squally type day across the country. It gets really windy over the weekend, but let's get there first. There are some things to discuss for Friday's weather. So, look, Friday won't be the windiest day in the world, but it will certainly be noteworthy. There'll be a gusty wind, and you can see places like the Ruahines and areas over the eastern South Island coming back on screen. You can see these areas where I'm pointing to where there's a bit of red, some higher wind gusts. So we got travel going across east to west from Hawke's Bay to, say, the Manawatu. As you go up in elevation, there will be some pretty strong winds you have to be mindful of. So what about rainfall? Well, you can see there will be this squally type event. We will find these squally type showers whenever. I'll zoom in here a little bit. Whenever we see these kind of popcorn type appearance to the rain, those are convective type showers. So convection basically means it's driven off a temperature difference from the ground and above the ground. Convection, heat. And you'll see whenever these heavier showers, maybe even some thunderstorms, whenever they move overhead, especially later Friday morning for the upper North Island into Friday afternoon, that's when the risk for not only a brief heavy shower, perhaps a bit of hail, but a brief heavy shower, they can bring down momentum transfer, it's called, these stronger wind gusts. So that's when you can see these puff of gusts that are, whoa, it kind of grabs your attention. You'll see, too, that's snow across the Central Plateau. Yes, snow, and snow for the upper South Island as well. Now, there will be a good drop of snow. I did say we are recording this Thursday afternoon. Thursday night, there will be a good drop of snow. What I'll do, because it's been a really rough and tough year for many areas across the country, particularly South Island and unfortunately North Island with the snowfall and the ski fields. But there will be a bit of snow. Look at this. By Friday morning now, some areas, now we have the elevation there. I'm going to go into the weeds a little bit. So this isn't the actual elevation. This is what's called model elevation, meaning the model thinks this is how high a certain point on the map is. In reality, it's not doing a perfect job with capturing the height. So, for example, we have just over 1,900 meters here in this example. If I were to look at an actual topography map, that would probably be somewhere around, 2,500 meters or 2,300 meters, or I'm making that up, but just to show you there will be a difference. It's undervaluing or underdoing. It's smoothing out those peaks and valleys. So I guess the message is that this isn't the actual elevation, so no comments saying, well, you can leave comments, of course, but not about the elevation because we're being proactive about what we're looking at, right? Look, you can see some places will be near and above a meter of snow. This is in centimeters, and you can see 50, you get into triple digits down here. Look at that. So, but you're going to have to be about 15, 13, 1,600 meters or higher to get into those beefy snowfalls. I mean, look at that, a meter of snow just about, but you got to be more than a mile up. So, I mean, you got to be pretty high up. But that's good, if nothing else, for storage, hydro catchment. So get a good snowpack. and then that water is melted, it melts during the summer, and that helps generate the electricity. So, look, there are some benefits to this apart from the snow enthusiasts out there. So worthy of mentioning that some snow Thursday night into Friday morning will be across the South Island. That'll be easing, though. Notice by midday, 12 noon on Friday, that's pretty much done. Another round of snow does attempt to move into the lower part of the South Island, another front toward Fiordland. You can see a band of snow right there. Yep, pushing north with time. So that'll be moving through the South Island late Friday into Friday night. Basically, we are in this pattern where we have this really fast flow of air. Let me center our map here. We have this really brisk westerly wind, and that is going to keep things unsettled. It's going to keep things kind of squally and showery, if I can say that word. And there we are for the day on Friday. So Friday, in a nutshell, the best weather is going to be because of westerlies on the east of both islands. Yes, there'll be some gusty breezes, Hawke's Bay and perhaps the high country of Canterbury, but at least it should be chiefly dry in those areas. Rainfall amounts, it's worthy of showing you this. You can see this is a running total. You can kind of see that where there will be snow because the amounts don't look so much. This is a rainfall forecast. We just showed you the snowfall forecast. But look, this is a good drop of rain. It's been dry. It has been quite dry across the South Island so far this winter. Some areas less than 80% of what is normal for winter rainfall. In fact, let me see if I can go to observations here. Do we have that? Yeah, here we go. So let's look at observed rainfall anomaly. So for the month of August, we see a lot of brown on the map. So that's telling us for the month of August, we've had subpar, below normal rainfall for a good chunk of the country. Obviously, the weather we're going to experience these remaining, 5 days or 4 days or whatever it is of August, 3 days, that will change things a bit, but maybe not entirely. But for the west of the South Island, I think that brown goes away to maybe neutral color, so near normal rainfall. Anyway, we could use the rain. That is the message for the South Island, and we're going to get some. Let's go back to the rainfall forecast. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a little bit of I just can't help myself. These are really, I find this a really kind of, pretty way of looking at rainfall forecasts using the bars. So basically, the bigger the bars, the bigger the rainfall, and we use the color to help. So when you see that darker, pink into purple, you're getting 100 millimeters or more, and you can see those bars really climb. So this is 48 hours. So this does include rain that will fall during the day on Thursday, the time we are recording this, into Thursday night and, of course, Friday. And you can see there's not that much spillover. So spillover is when the rain cannot make it across the Southern Alps, across the divide and into, say, Canterbury or parts of Otago. We don't see a lot of that. Let me zoom in a little bit. You can see not a lot of rain for Christchurch, but a short distance away, those rainfall forecast numbers are expected to go up pretty good. So the west of the South Island, the big winner when it comes to rainfall. And you can see as you move farther to the north, parts of the North Island, you can see a few bumps here. That's where rainfall will be locally higher. So some areas in the Central Plateau, the Tararuas, the Ruahines, Mount Taranaki, you can see about the Munga, there'll be a good maybe 50, 75 millimeters of rainfall. So that's what is expected as a collective. So that sums up, before we sum up Friday, let me show you temperatures because I think there'll be some pretty warm temperatures in Hawke's Bay. Worthy of maybe getting out and enjoying the sunshine. If you don't mind the wind, there'll be some gusty breezes. But we're going to be in, this is, I think midday will be the warmest. We could be up near 19, 18, 17 degrees for parts of Hawke's Bay. So it'll feel like spring, even though we're still technically in winter. That comes on Monday. So that is Friday for you. Then for the weekend, let's get a sneak peek into the weekend. Recording this Thursday afternoon, so things may change a bit, but I think things have been pretty stable in the forecast area for the weekend, and that is wind. You can see, why do we know? Don't even have to look at a wind map. Why do we know this? It's the isobars. So isobars, equal lines of pressure. When they're close together, the wind blows stronger. Basically, the wind blows parallel to the isobars as a general rule of thumb, and we can chuck the wind down there. You can see there's a northwest flow Saturday ahead of a pretty beefy front that'll be coming in, and look at that. There's another southerly change Saturday night into Sunday. This is going to bring some pretty strong wind. Look at this. So this is late Saturday night, technically Sunday midnight, but we'll call it late Saturday night amongst friends, right? Look what's over the Tasman Sea. We see a bunch of red. So the weather system here that is causing this, and there's a front, you can see it like so. This will be moving toward the east and be over much of the North Island, including the Auckland area. The upper North Island could see some pretty strong winds during the day on Sunday. So just a heads up, yes, Saturday there'll be perhaps a bit of a lull with the strong winds. So if you're looking for a day where it's not as windy, I think Saturday's your day. But as you can see in the map, we still have plenty of gold. So that's still 50K wind gusts. If you need low wind for whatever you're going to do, Saturday may not be your day, apart from sections of Canterbury and perhaps parts of the western South Island, maybe Hawke's Bay. Those are a few exceptions to the rule, but by and large, there still will be a bit of a breeze on Saturday. But it's Sunday where the wind gets really impressive. Let's go to our ensemble modeling. This really tells the story quite nicely. So we're looking at the probability of wind gusts to exceed 70 kilometers per hour. So this is Friday. You can see a lot of red, so that's telling us a high probability. And then when we get down to the yellow, that's some probability. But notice on Saturday, that kind of thins out a bit. We don't see as much red. Watch Sunday. Goes a lot of orange and a lot of red into Monday. So Sunday into early Monday, like the wee hours of Monday morning, almost pre-sunrise, pre-dawn, that's when the winds are likely to be strongest. So this is an entire day on Monday, but truthfully, it's really early in the morning where the winds will be strongest. So you can see Sunday, no joke there. What about 100K winds? So you can see on Saturday, there's not much of a signal for 100K winds apart from the actual Southern Alps. That's where, and the higher elevations, you can see that kind of quite nicely. It really sticks out where those higher elevations are because that's where the highest risk for 100K gusts are, or exceeding 100K. Then on Sunday, you can see how that shifts to the North Island coastal areas. Let's zoom in to the North Island. You can see over the Orihines and the Tararuas, sure, yep, kind of expected, but look at that, coastal areas, we are looking at some probability, and if I put my cursor on there, this is the cool thing, we can look at the odds for a range of outcomes. So the odds of getting 40K wind gusts, you can pretty much bet the farm on it, 100%. 70K wind gusts, you can see about not quite a 2 in 3 chance, 61%, and 100K wind gusts, more than a 1 in 3 chance. So that's for that particular spot. And then if we go into Monday, you can see again, it's western areas of Auckland, western areas of Northland, western areas of Waikato. This is where the odds for the greatest wind gusts are going to be. So things like maybe some spotty wind damage, spotty power outages, can't rule that out. Certainly keep on top of warnings with our friends at Met Service. They'll be all over this, and they'll be issuing watches and warnings and keeping everyone up to date on where the greatest risk for, say, damage or impacts will be as we get closer to the event during the weekend. So, yes, Sunday is going to be a windy day across the country, and you can see a lot of that wind is going to be focused over the Alps, over the South Island, the higher elevations. And for the North Island, it's going to be focused, yes, over the higher elevations, as you can see here, but also kind of coastal and exposed areas of the upper North Island from the western Waikato, western Auckland, and western Northland areas. So get ready for some really interesting weather on Sunday with strong wind gusts and squally showers. In fact, let's back things up. So this is Sunday, 6 in the morning. We have low pressure. So what's causing this is, as I zoom out a little bit, there's going to be a low. You can see it right here. That's the center of the low. And that's going to cause a pressure gradient, basically a change in air pressure over distance. That's what gives us wind, is when the air pressure changes, we get wind. Just like when your elevation changes, you get water flowing faster. If it's a steeper elevation change, the water flows really fast. If it's a gradual elevation change, it's more of a gentle flow. It's the same stinking thing. Low pressure is basically a hole in the atmosphere. Mother Nature tries to fill that hole with the fluid, the air. And as that hole in the atmosphere shifts to the east, this is where we go from low pressure to high pressure building in well to our west and north, and that's what causes the wind. So there's the science lesson for you. But with that low pressure on Sunday will be showers, some more snow over the higher elevations of the South Island. You can see here where I'm pointing to, and there'll be maybe some thunderstorms. So let's go back to our ensemble modeling. So what we're looking at here are the odds for at least one strike of lightning, one lightning strike, he said. Now, You'll have to excuse. For some reason our color bar is off screen, but don't worry about it. You know what it is, right? High is red, low or some is yellow, and medium is the orange coloring. So here's Friday. So on Friday, could be a couple thunderstorms. And as I said earlier, those thunderstorms could bring down some, temporarily strong wind gusts. Sunday and Monday, you can see western areas of both islands. That's where we see the medium chance for getting at least one lightning strike. So that's the best chance for thunderstorms. And it is Saturday and Sunday. See Sunday there? I should mention, when we do have those squally showers, when we do have any thunderstorms, those are the times when we could see some really brief but intense wind gusts. Now, those are the wind gusts. If there's going to be any problems, it's very likely to be when those squally showers occur, because they kind of tap into the higher wind above and it comes down with the rain. It kind of brings that down with the rain, and that's when we can see some problems. So we'll just have to watch for that. Look, it's one of those days on Sunday where, maybe you just do binge watching on TV and your favorite show, do some chores in the house. Perhaps anything indoors, or just kind of have a lie-in, honestly, because Monday it's back at it. So, and Monday itself, we could still see a couple of thunderstorms, but you can see that signal decreasing as the color goes away. In terms of the weather itself on Monday, going back to the maps here, so this is our global model. You can see, as I talked about, that low zipping to our east Sunday, causing the showers and the thunder showers and the wind. That shifts to our east. We are in this pretty brisk southwest flow there. You can see the isobars. So we're going to have gusty southwest winds, and that will continue basically even into Tuesday, though it will relax for the upper North Island on Tuesday, but still remain a bit beefy for the eastern part of the North and South Island, for that matter. So the wind relaxes Tuesday, especially over northern areas, a bit clingy, a bit residual for eastern areas on Tuesday. Then high pressure moves in Wednesday. Look at that. Things settle down. So the upper North Island, a place to be on Wednesday for the best weather, but without high to the north. Remember, air around high pressure goes counter or anti-clockwise in the southern hemisphere. And because of that, we have a low to our south. There you can see low to our south where I'm pointing. There's the high. The two act like cogs, and we get a pretty brisk westerly wind. So more westerlies on Wednesday, more showers on Wednesday, and again, favoring the western part of the South Island. That is where we're going to see the best chance for rain on Wednesday. And that's why it's been dry. We've taken some queries and some media calls from, the media, and they've asked and talked about why the lack of snow for many ski fields in the South Island. And quite simply, it's because of the airflow. In June, we had easterlies. In July, we had northeasterlies. Again, these are kind of themes for the overall month. Of course, there were days when that did not happen, but these were the kind of the overarching themes. Easterlies, June, northeasterlies, July, and preliminarily, it's been kind of south to southeast for August, which has led to some cooler temperatures, but that's not exactly a moist wind direction. Air coming from the east or northeast for the South Island, for the most, for the Alps and west of the Alps, that's a dry wind. We need a westerly type wind, northwest or even southwest, and that's what we're going to see. So this is a shift as we are now in spring next week. You often hear about the spring westerly winds, and right on cue, we'll be seeing that. And you often hear a spring coming in like a lion and leaving like a lamb. Well, it's going to live up to that reputation because it will be active to begin meteorological spring next week. So yeah, we have some westerlies and more wet weather coming next week for the western part of the South Island. High pressure will keep things, I think, reasonably palatable for the upper North Island. So Waikato northbound, generally speaking, should be pretty good for eastern areas. So anywhere in the eastern North Island or eastern South Island, whenever we have these west winds, maybe not southwest, but certainly west winds, we're going to be pretty much okay. We may get a little bit of rain here and there, but we're going to fare better than other areas because that is a dry wind for eastern areas of both islands when we have, say, a west or northwest wind. So those areas should actually not get that much rain over the coming days. In fact, look, here's our ensemble model, which goes out 5 days. This doesn't really go into next week that far. It does go into about sunrise or just before sunrise Tuesday. And where do we see the colors? I mean, come on. You can plainly see that areas in western North Island and western South Island and areas in the eastern part, that's where there's a deficit or a lack of rainfall. So clearly, this jives. This makes sense. So, in terms of what can we expect temperature-wise, can we get a clue on that? Yes, we can. We go to one of my favorite levels, the 850 level, about 1,600 meters up, because this gives us a good idea what the temperature theme will be. And here we are let's back things up here. So we are now well and truly in September. So this is next Thursday, a week from today on this recording, the 4th of September. Still have a bit of a southwest flow, it looks like. So maybe a puff of chilly air later in the week, next week on Thursday. But look, that's a glancing blow. It goes away by Friday late in the night. That's to our east. And we're now into this northwest flow. So, and then we see another low. Look at that. That's interesting. Bit of a low there next Sunday. So Sunday, the 7th of September, I beg your pardon. We'll watch that, but that could signal perhaps some wet weather for the upper South Island and much of the North Island. But that is a northwest flow, a north to northwest flow. So that ain't cold, part of the grammar. And then you can see how winds favor kind of the west and northwest. So I don't see a lot of cold air. I know we're getting some snow Thursday night and Friday and for the weekend. It's going to be sort of elevation dependent. In fact, it won't be sort of elevation dependent. It will be elevation dependent. It's not going to be exceptionally cold. Yeah, there'll be some chilly days. And yeah, the wind will add a bite to the air. But in terms of, actual thermometer readings, yeah, there'll be a couple chilly days next week, as we pointed out, Wednesday, Thursday for the South Island, and maybe for Friday for the entire country. But these are singular days. I think these are days where, we don't see, these are days basically that we're not going to be we're not going to be that warm, and other days we will be. So this variability of going from chilly to warm, back to kind of cool, back to warm to chilly to kind of that sort of up and down, that reflects the wind. Generally speaking, when we have changeable temperatures, you're going to find some pretty gusty wind, pretty strong wind. They go hand in hand. Settled weather, you generally don't get a lot of wind. I mean, it can, I guess, sometimes. But as a rule of thumb, if you're going through a big temperature change, up and down, with that will come the wind. And lastly, we check out our NEWA 35. Do we have that up? Give us some insight as to what's coming down the pike. Right. So, here we go. Yeah, look, that makes sense. You can see how the North Island dryness is favored for the first week of September, except for western parts where we're calling that near normal. So this is the model. So I'm just speaking to the model. You can see western areas of the South Island looks wet, doesn't it? We see a lot of green, even darker green. So this is the first week of September. Eastern areas of the South Island, oh yeah, go figure, not much rain. So again, this all jives. Northwest winds. That's a dry wind for the eastern parts. It's more of a wet wind for the western parts. Now, second week of September, we still have this wet signal or wet lean for many northern and western areas of the South Island. Not much of a signal for the North Island, maybe a bit of dryness in Hawke's Bay. And that continues into, I'll disappear here, into the 15th to the 21st, maybe. Look, there could be some easterlies, maybe, 15th to the 21st. We're seeing eastern areas of both islands with a wet signal, but western areas with a bit of a dry and lean. So that's telling me places like the Coromandel, Tadafati, Gisborne, Hawke's Bay, maybe Christchurch, Banks Peninsula, you see that green. So that's telling me there could be a period of easterlies potentially. And then we'll see what happens. I mean, we're getting way out there in late September. Perhaps a wet signal, maybe some more westerlies later on in the month for the South Island. Look, that is it for me. I've yapped on plenty enough here. So, by the way, next week, so on Tuesday, the 2nd of September, worth mentioning, we will be issuing our spring outlook. So this will give us an idea of what the outlook or spring will be. Keep in mind, an outlook is just setting the scene. It's the short-term weather forecast that give us the details. So these outlooks are meant to give us a bit of guidance as to what themes may emerge for a 3-month period, September, October, November. And I'll give you a clue. We have La Nina fighting to get in the driver's seat. We'll see what that means for spring. Oftentimes it could be a bit chaotic early on or variable September, October, then things kind of settle into more of a La Nina pattern as we get toward the end of spring. But that's just me riffing, going off script. We'll see. That is it for me. Thank you for watching. Be sure to leave some comments in there. We moderate them. We do our best to answer them. And we'll see you next time. I'm Earth Sciences, there's a plural there, meteorologist Chris Brandolino, and we'll see you next time. Namahi Nui.